Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Thursday, November 14th, 2024, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And as you can see, I'm coming to you from the van. I've got a couple more pretty cool Bigfoot stories for you today, and it's all in the form of emails, and I'm going to read them to you so that you can hear them just the same way I got them. And they're pretty cool. There's one that involves actually a total of 2 emails out of eastern Tennessee. And then I've got another one that involves 2 or 3 emails out of actually happened to Crazytown. And I kind of hinting around that I had a Crazytown story coming to you, but it also has a connection to Florida. And you'll understand what I'm talking about. So I'm going to read these to you, and then I'm going to make comments. And it's like the last time, I think I can probably read them better without my glasses. So let me get started with this one. And take my glasses off and set them over here, and let's see how we can make this work. This is from my friend Greg, and he lives in eastern Tennessee. And so he says, "Good morning, Chuck. I sure hope you're doing good. Sorry I email all the time instead of calling, but I just figure you can read at your own convenience this way. Wanted to update you on a possible major breakthrough. My mom has been visiting here this week, and she's gone with me to an area 4 nights in a row. We spent several hours each night sitting in our chairs, walking around and trying to interact with any of the forest people who may show up. Over the 4 nights, we've had some interesting activity. Several instances involve strange lights in multiple colors, and a very large tree pushover and eye glow. 2 things happened, though, that stood out from the rest, and I wanted to tell you about it. Up until the first night we were there, I had not been out there in well over a month. Now, he's been going to this spot for quite some time, for several years. And to give you a little background on Greg, Greg was he's been a Bigfooter for a long time, but for the longest time, he was looking for undiscovered apes. And some time ago, he and I started conversing back and forth, and after watching some of my videos, we've kind of converted him over to the, I guess we call it the paranormal side. So let me go back here. I had not been out there in well over a month, and we had not been there 20 minutes, which sounded like multiple large deer came down through the woods across the field and stopped just inside the tree line where we couldn't see them. I'm not using thermal cameras anymore. I talked him out of using any cameras. So at first we didn't know what it was until several of them started snorting and blowing. This went on for several minutes before they ran off in the direction they had come from, and it was very loud. I've been visiting this area for over 8 years and never have even seen a deer here. It was very odd. Now this is the really weird part. While they were standing there blowing, we saw 2 small red lights streak through the woods where they were standing. I'm not sure what this was or what it had to do with the deer, but it was very strange. Well, first of all, I don't think they were probably deer. They might have been snorting and sounding like deer, but I don't think they were deer. The second thing that happened was nothing short of flat out amazing. The 4th night we visited, we were walking down the gravel road near where we had been sitting, and as we rounded the corner, we saw what looked like eye glow and some thick brush at the edge of the woods. This is an area either the same place or very similar to the picture that he sent me that I used for my community page this morning. When we stopped to look, the eye glow moved back into the brush and seemed to be trying to hide. You could still see it back in the brush, but not nearly as good as at first. My mom started talking to it and asking for a name. She didn't hear anything, but had a strong impression that it was a young girl. After standing there watching for a couple minutes, the name Rebecca just popped into my mind. I was totally surprised and caught off guard by it. This was the first time I had ever received a name anywhere, and I wasn't even the one asking the question. Like I've heard you say, I'm pretty sure her name really wasn't Rebecca, but maybe that's the name she wants to be called. After a few minutes, we could no longer see the eye glow, so we turned and walked back to the way we had come. Needless to say, I'm really excited about this. Maybe if you get time, you can see if you can get anything asking about that name. Planning on going back again this weekend. Anyway, maybe we can talk on the phone sometime soon. I included a couple pictures of the location from this past weekend. Take care. Well, that's pretty cool, because when I first sat down and read this thing, while I was reading it, and when I read the name Rebecca, I actually got a little tingle. And I immediately responded back and said, I felt that. Is that the name, and is that name correct? and I seem to have got an acknowledgement that, yes, that is a correct name. So he's clear in eastern Tennessee, and I'm sitting in my living room in Arizona. And it's amazing to me whenever that happens. I don't know if there is a distance limit to the mind speak or what the deal was. But anyway, I got a little buzz. I responded back to it, and I seem to have got an affirmative on that name. So that's that's pretty cool in itself. And let me read you the answer. And I said, "Hi, Greg. I hadn't heard from you in a while, and I was wondering how you were doing. Tell your mom I said hi. Congrats on getting the name." And it just said, as I was reading your email, I got a tingle. The same thing I just got done telling you. And so I'm currently working, I said I'm currently working with a guy and his adult son in southern Pennsylvania who are having the same dad asks a question, son gets the response experience like you had. Also, I doubt that those were actually deer. They were just making deer-like noises. And we run that same thing with my partner Kevin and I, and that is that he gets mind speak a lot better than I do. So quite often I'll ask the questions, and he sits there and puts his mind in neutral, and he gets the answers. And so it's not that unusual at all what he experienced here. But I want to read you another email. I got to back up here a second and find it. But this is from Greg's mother that was with him. And I just got this one a little bit ago, and I was glad because I was getting ready to come up here and shoot this video. And I'm glad I got to include it. But this she has a slightly different perspective on what's going on, but she had some stuff happen too. So let me read this to you. Hi, Chuck. I hope you've been well and enjoying fall in Arizona. I've been wanting to write you all week since I've been here with Greg in Tennessee. We have had some interesting times so far. I'm hoping you could possibly clarify or maybe confirm what happened to me. The other night while at Greg's area, we had been hearing what we thought were deer, and then she says, I kind of doubt it was deer, and I kind of doubt it was deer as well. And other snaps and many lights around us. We suddenly heard a loud, thunderous tree crash. We both noticed the atmosphere just changed. The mood became somber and serious. We commented it felt like Big Daddy had arrived. I could smell an odor like ozone or just a strange smell, and had chills all down my legs. Greg and I were standing close to the car, and I moved closer to him for protection, I think, close enough I could hear him breathing. Although really dark, you could see just a little from the stars. My heart had been pounding out of my chest, and I was trembling some. Suddenly that was gone. I was calm as a cucumber. No fear or anything. I heard a thought in my head that said, be brave, plain as day. And I sure wasn't thinking of that beforehand. I stood up straight and at attention, stared straight ahead for what seemed like minutes. I felt as if I was looking straight into someone's eyes, but I couldn't see them. I couldn't look away. It was more of a feeling and then a calmness. Greg said that he thought he heard someone behind us on the other side of the car. It was a strange feeling because I couldn't see anything. I felt like somebody was looking inside my very soul. I know this is crazy, but I've felt differently since that night. I've been going through some stress at home and health issues with family and myself, kind of fearing what's ahead. I don't feel that anymore. It just went away. My head has been clearer and I feel more settled, at least for now anyway. I have to leave Sunday and it starts again. Do you think I got a message or scanned or anything? I wish I could have seen them because I know I wasn't imagining all this. I hope to go back one more time before I leave. Thank you for the amazing things you do and for helping so many people, especially for helping my boy. Of course, I believe he is very special. Now, she hasn't allowed me to use her name, so I'm just going to call her Greg's mom. So there's two interesting emails that I read to you about the same incident. Both of them received mind speak. Greg got a name. And to give you a little backstory on that, last season, I think it was, when he went to this same spot, he had something happen, and he got mind speak that said, things will be different now, if I remember that incident correctly. And so he's been making some slow but steady progress in his quest to learn the truth on this. And now he's gotten to the point where they're starting to give him names. And I thought it was interesting because he saw the eye glow, and a lot of the eye glow that we see is kind of a yellowish white color, kind of bright. And sometimes we've seen red, and red doesn't necessarily mean hostile. But this one, he said, it was a very, very pretty bluish green color. And it was a young female named Rebecca. And I was actually able to confirm that. So isn't that cool? I just love it when that kind of stuff happens. So let me tell you about this second story, and I have to go to another email. And this one, to give you some backstory on this one, is this individual is a fellow named Bruce, and he's from Florida. And he's told me I could use his name. And he sent me an email quite some time ago. And now I try to answer all the emails, and I try to answer all the comments I get. But admittedly, I'm not perfect, and every once in a while I miss one, especially if I get one that's long and complicated. I have a tendency to set it aside, figuring that I want to go back and read it again so I can answer it properly. And every once in a while, one of those kind of gets pushed onto the back burner of the stove, and you know how the story goes. Things happen, and more things keep coming in, and eventually it kind of falls down behind the stove and gets lost. And that's kind of what happened to Bruce's first email. So when he sent me the second one, I felt really bad because I never responded to his first one. And but let me read you the first one, and then let me tell you what happened, because it's a pretty interesting story. He says, "Hi, Chuck. I found your YouTube channel while searching for possible videos on Sasquatch healing. I've heard of this phenomenon on occasion. I was amazed to hear of the multiple experiences you've related in your various videos, you included." Yes, they've worked on me 14 times, 6 times for my tinnitus, the ringing in my ears alone, and I still have the tinnitus. They have not been able to fix that in spite of work. 6 different ones worked on me 6 different times. I thank you for your reporting on this. I watched some of your other videos too, and I really admire your community involvement, your mechanical skills, and your helpfulness to others. Kudos, and thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. I've been on a long journey trying to develop this special skill of healing myself. 10 years ago, I traveled across the country to take part in a metaphysical Christian school of sorts, under the tutelage of gifted Christian healers. Others seem to be able to learn how to do this for themselves and others, but I was not successful. I have a chronic progressive condition, not unlike that of Alabama Al. You've heard me talk about Alabama Al before. That has defied my efforts to find satisfactory resolution medically. My wife and I have spent a good chunk of our retirement savings trying to find a solution. My condition, unfortunately, is deteriorating to the point that life is getting challenging. I don't ever want to become a burden to my wife, and I need to remain functional and dependable. I've been following anything I can learn about the Sasquatch people since I saw the Patterson film in the late 1960s. That was 1967. I feel as if I have a fair understanding of them, at least through what has been shared by others, as well as what is not true, or at least mischaracterization. Although I've never had a personal experience myself, I know you recommended it in one of your videos for others to develop a connection to a local family unit or tribe. But there are a couple reasons why this isn't a promising or viable option where I live. Chief among my concerns is the fact that one never knows whether a random encounter might be with a hostile, angry, devious individual that might open up a can of worms I don't want to deal with. I'm especially protective of my wife, not bringing something home that would frighten her and be difficult to rid ourselves of. Scott Carpenter warned me about this, and if you ever, Scott died a while back, but he had a pretty unique take on all this, and he didn't necessarily believe that the Sasquatch people were all good. And I think I'm sure there's some bad ones, but the ones I've dealt with have been all very positive. But he's in a different part of the country, and we've talked about that before. So let me continue. Also, over time, I've gathered an understanding that it seems there may be regional behavioral differences between the Sasquatch peoples, with some more friendly and spiritually evolved than others. There may be exceptions, of course, but I've heard the Florida skunk apes described as pretty low on the totem pole of sophistication. Many of the encounters described here in this state would seem to support that conclusion. Finally, we don't live conveniently near any likely locations of open public lands free from congestion, road noise, etc., that I would be able to walk into and then be able to tolerate the swarms of biting insects while sitting in a chair, and that sounds like a Florida thing. It wasn't too long ago I was able to hike miles with a heavy pack. Now I can only manage a painful mile or so on level ground with no pack. Earlier this year, I contacted Mike Patterson of Sasquatch, Ontario, to see if he could offer any suggestions. In spite of the relationship he and his partner Dwayne have developed with the family unit they interact with, and the fact that both of them could use healing themselves, he didn't specify, the best that they had been offered once in the past is an herb. He could offer no suggestions for me, so even if a significant relationship has been established for many years, the willingness or capacity of the Sasquatch to extend a healing gift is not guaranteed, and I'll confirm that. This is awkward for me to ask, and forgive me for being forward, but might you be able to help me? In order for this to have any chance at all to succeed, I think it would be necessary for a trusted individual to make an introduction so that the Sasquatch feels safe, and then might hopefully allow for an initial possible interaction. I would be willing to drive anywhere in the country. I am a seasoned, experienced camper and have a Toyota 4Runner. Might they accept a gift of something that they might value in exchange? Not food, or something like natural tobacco leaf, intertwine, or marbles. I noted that the healings you shared were spontaneous, but might someone new bring a gift to help break the ice? We are very private people, and the knowledge of such an event would be safe with us. We don't make videos or use social media. I fully understand the need for safeguarding such an interaction and protecting the location. I realize there are no guarantees with any of this, but the successes you have shared have given me hope. I read the post you made on your community page on August 20th about others contacting you with similar requests. If this isn't something you would want to be involved in, might you be able to point me to someone else who could facilitate such an encounter? I would be extremely grateful. Blessings. And then he went on with a PS about my kidney stones. Well, as you can tell, that was a fairly long and complicated email, and I meant to respond back to him, and for one reason or another, my mind got diverted, and I just didn't do it. And so I'd kind of forgotten all about Bruce, and then I got this next email, and let me read you the next one I got. And this one just came in on the 12th. It's the 14th today. Said let me back up here a second. It said, "Hi again, Chuck. I've been hemming and hawing over whether to send you this message, but after viewing the video you posted today about your friend with the Cybertruck, I felt I should write you to give you a bit of an update. I know my previous message to you back in August was awkward, and I wanted to allow you your space if you had just decided my request was just not something you wanted to be involved in. That said, I made some decisions which may have unintentionally had impacts on your own experience. I began watching the calendar and realized the year was ending quickly, at least as far as camping in the high country goes. When I saw that the weather in the area of Arizona in question was to have an unexpected October warming spell, my decision was made, and I drove the 3 days to your Crazytown spot from my home here in Florida. I figured out where this was from a couple of earlier videos, some good detective work there. We don't go out of the way to try to hide the location, but we don't publicize it either. And I've had quite a number of people, because it's a public place, and I've had quite a number of people that came back and said, "Oh, I know where that's at." And Bruce in Florida figured it out. I arrived on the afternoon of Monday, October 21st, and left to return home Thursday morning, the 24th. I had the entire area to myself. The first evening, I forgot to adjust my clock for the time change, and I didn't realize it was too early for activity from the forest people, but it was too dang cold, so I went to bed about 7:45 local time. Well, Crazytown's down in a canyon between two mountains, and even though the elevation isn't really high, the sun sets pretty early there, and it can be a pretty cold place. So Tuesday warmed up quickly, and I spent the day reading from the Bible aloud. I read the entire chapter of Matthew and also Ephesians and a couple of Psalms. That night I experienced some things I've never seen before. I recalled what Chris, another one of our folks, had described in one of your videos, and I believe I saw something similar, or at maybe 8 p.m. or so, I began seeing a glow about 50 yards up the hillside to the west from the fire ring. It was an indistinct area of faint whitish-greenish light that also illuminated the air inside of it while still being translucent. It was about 20 feet in diameter. It also changed in intensity, like there were faint hidden spotlights inside, moving to and fro, illuminating the trees and branches around it. This glowing area lasted about 20 minutes or so. Then a few minutes later, another location about 50 feet north of the location lit up the same way, but a little brighter. The second glow was unobscured by trees like the first spot, and I could see it clearly. It was so bizarre and so outside of my experience that I was pretty awestruck. I saw some eye shine on the hillside, and that would have been actually eye glow, along with another strange glow in front of me on the other side of the fire pit to the south, about 30 feet away. I'm not sure about this because I was still trying to process what I was seeing, but this had the appearance of a single large eye, which I later determined the following day was about 15 feet off the ground. And then he asked me, is it possible that Tarragon only has one eye? To the best of our knowledge, he has two. This glow remained for about 10 or 15 minutes, although I didn't see it blink, so I may have been mistaken. I went to bed around 9:30 or so. Wednesday evening was different than the previous evening. The area on the hillside, which was lit up Tuesday night, was pitch black. I saw very obvious bright eye shine from the location of the first glowing area that seemed to be looking right at me for a couple minutes. Then that disappeared, and the other areas of eye shine appeared in other locations, sometimes brief flashes of only 1/10 of a second. That's what I think that was what we call twinkle lights. Then I began hearing bipedal scampering about on the hillside. I think a couple of mothers brought their young ones out to play. My impression was that the eye shine is a form of communication between them. One of the footsteps was heavier, guessing in the 80-pound range, and one or two others were lighter. One of the smaller ones slipped once, which happened to me earlier in the day when I tried to climb up to the area I saw the glow the night before. The pine needles and dry soil are slippery. They kept away from my vehicle in an arc about 30 feet or so. I finally said goodnight about 9:45. There was no moon while I was there, but the starlight was sufficient for me to see enough, especially the area immediately around the fire ring and down the road. And that's our experience as well. The soil in that area is a slightly lighter color, and so you can kind of, even when it's pretty dark, you can still figure out where the road's at. I had no aptitude whatsoever in receiving mind speak, although I was speaking and listening constantly. I asked for healing, but that request went unanswered. They were not interested in either of the gifts I brought, natural tobacco leaf or a ball of jute twine. I caught myself several times saying, I wish Chuck were here. When you reported the following week that Tarragon came to your home, I wondered if that might have been a connection somehow, like maybe he was checking up on you because of what I said, although I would think they would know how you were doing without them actually traveling to your home. And yes, I did a video about that. Tarragon was here. I kind of doubt that it had any connection with this, but who knows. A couple of random comments about that camping area. First, that darn skunk has become a menace. I had to continually have my head on a swivel because he would wander by past the fire ring with his tail in the air multiple times each evening. One time he came up from behind and walked 3 feet from my chair. I would softly clap my gloved hands together and try to shoo him off each time. Secondly, I was very disappointed in the trash, and I remember in a short video you posted about trying to clean up some of the garbage, and he goes on and talks about the trash. Now, this is a public area, and it's fairly heavily used, and unfortunately, some of the folks that use it are not very good about cleaning up after themselves, and we run into that as well. And my answer to him, which I'll also read, that responds to that. He says, let's see. Let me skip over a little area here. Going back home towards I-40, I drove through Payson and stopped by the museum to see if you might be working. The woman there said she saw you earlier walking Flapjack, but that you had not stopped by the museum that day. If you ever come to town and you go to the museum to see if I'm working, ask them if they call me if I'll come down. The worst that can possibly happen is that I'm tied up and can't do it. But I don't live too far from there, and I would have happily come down and met Bruce. Good grief, he drove clear across the country to be here. And so be sure and do that. And I'll mention that on my answer to him, which I'm going to read here in a minute. Again, you can completely trust my respect of the wishes of you and your group to the confidentiality of this location. I meant no one any harm for my intrusion, but my wife and I decided that I couldn't not do this. He he felt drawn to the area. Have any of us experienced that before? Yeah, we had experience where we needed to go someplace and we're not really sure why. And I think that very probably what happened to my new friend Bruce in that regard. He didn't necessarily interpret it that way, but I think that probably had something to do with it. It was a wonderful experience, and for that I am grateful. Perhaps I need more trips there to build their trust in me, although it seems I have a good start maybe. I apologize for my wordiness. Best wishes to you and your family. And let me read my answer. And this is something I sent to him yesterday, and then I spoke to him by phone at length last evening. Good morning, Bruce. Thank you for reaching out. First, I want to apologize for not responding to your initial email. I try to answer all comments and emails that I receive from my viewers, but I do occasionally miss doing that. I think what happened was, because of the length and nature of your email, I had set it aside with the intention of replying to you after I had a chance to think about it a bit. And then it got buried by newer messages until my attention got diverted elsewhere. I did not intentionally ignore you. I'm just an ADHD type of guy, and I sometimes, often actually, get distracted by chasing squirrels. Please accept my apology. I'm amazed that you took the time and effort to drive clear across the country to visit Crazytown, and I'm sorry that you found the place so trashy. Unfortunately, that is a real problem here with many of our popular camping areas. We blame thoughtless idiots, which are idiots from the big city, you've heard me talk about them before, for not respecting the place enough to clean up after themselves, and we also blame the U.S. Forest Service for not doing enough to take care of the places that they are responsible for. As for your visit, you obviously had activity, and the local Sasquatch families paid you a visit. They showed themselves to you in orb form, both in larger orbs as well as the smaller ones that we refer to as twinkle lights. They also let you hear them moving around, and you were no doubt correct that they were little ones playing. And there's two family groups there by Crazytown, and they have, I don't know how many young ones, but there's quite a few. And they bring them down to play around us quite frequently, and we've both seen and experienced them around. And the skunk, that was one of them as well, just messing with you. There's actually two skunks, and I confirmed that when I talked to him. There's a bigger one, and then there's a younger, smaller one. The bigger one's really, really, really dirty. The white on his back is kind of a tan color from the dust. And the younger one, the white stripe on his back is brighter white. They are quite the pranksters at times. I'm sure there were other things that happened as well that you didn't include. As we always say, Crazytown doesn't disappoint. If you would like to discuss your visit further, my cell number is blank, blank, blank. Like most people these days, it's best to text first to be sure I'm not driving or something. Once again, please accept my apology for not getting back to you sooner. Best regards. And so, yes, I talked to him last evening at length, and he didn't have a whole lot more to add about his trip, but I was thoroughly impressed that he would take the time to drive clear across the country. Now, he drives a Toyota 4Runner, and he sets it up with a bed in it so he can sleep in it. And he also sent me some pictures of, he's a metal detectorist, and so he has a pretty high-level metal detector, and he goes looking for gold nuggets, and he actually sent me a picture of some gold nuggets he'd found here in Arizona on a trip. So he's no stranger to traveling all the way over here to Arizona. But I was quite impressed that he did all that, and once again, I felt really bad that I never responded back to him. And one of the reasons why I don't is because I had, right about that same time, I had quite a number of people with some pretty significant medical issues who, they've kind of run out of options, and they've heard about the healings, and I've talked about healings that I've experienced, and some of the healings I've experienced have been quite dramatic. And they've kind of reached out to me, and I felt really bad about that because, I have no control over what the forest people do or do not do when it comes to healing, and I can't guarantee that anything would happen. And with a new person, a lot of times when we take a new person out, nothing does happen, and that kind of messes it up for us too. And we've had a couple of bad experiences with taking some people out, and so we've gotten to the point where we're pretty darn careful about not doing that. We've almost shut the door on doing that, and I don't want to be that way. And so I've decided, in some cases that I'll take it on a case by case basis. But if nothing else, maybe if individuals are going to drive all the way across the country to come here, maybe I can just myself go out with them for a night. And chances are nothing's going to happen because it takes a long time to build that relationship with the Sasquatch people. Now, in Bruce's case, he's been doing this for a long time, and he's read a lot of stuff, and he definitely had activity there at Crazytown, and like we say, Crazytown doesn't disappoint. He didn't get the type of activity that he wanted. Now, did they possibly do something to him? Well, I asked him about the quality of his sleep, and he said he slept pretty good. And I think there's maybe what might have happened is they might have done a reading on him while he was sleeping, just like I think they did a reading on Greg's mom from the first episode. And they detected, there might have been more went on there that he actually thinks happened. It might not have been dramatic, and he might not have noticed any kind of a difference this early on. But I think they definitely know who he is, and obviously Greg and his mom, they know who they are, and they've both been tagged. And I think that, I think probably that my friend Bruce from Florida has been tagged as well. I think they know who he is, and I think that his story is not over yet. And so I think we'll be hearing more from him. I made some suggestions of some places that he go that are a whole lot closer than coming all the way out here to Arizona. He's kind of under the impression that the Sasquatch folks are more open to contact out here than there may be down in the south. And I've talked about this before, but I think the Sasquatch people are pretty much the same everywhere. But I think the regional differences have to do with how they've been treated by humans. And the area down in the south, we white Anglo-European folks have been there a lot longer than we have out west. And we've been there probably 250 years instead of 150. And when you know how long the Sasquatch people actually live, a 300-year-old Sasquatch is not that unusual. Then they probably the early settlers there, they're probably afraid of them, and they probably shot at them and probably shot a few of them. And the Sasquatch people have long memories, and that might be a pretty good reason why they don't like us a whole lot, and why it takes a little longer to get them to relax a little bit and earn your trust. Can it be done? Well, yeah, you saw it on that first incident, where the ones that are around Greg and his mom, they're not hostile. They might not be quite as open to contact, but they're still working on it. That's all still a work in progress. And I think the same thing can be said for Bruce. So I think this has gone on for quite a while now. There's some interesting stories. I told you I'd bring you something interesting. And I like it when I can read these things hot off the press to you. And so I'm going to tell you, as I always do, take care of each other and love each other. Take care of yourself. It's supposed to be about 15 degrees colder tomorrow. So I got chores around the house I want to do while it's still nice and warm today. It's t-shirt weather. And so I'm going to let you go for now, and I'll bring you another one. I'm working on another interesting one that, and we'll see what develops on that. And then I'll try to bring you some stuff on some other subjects as well. So for right now, let me bring my camera over here and get you a look at my hand towel there, and tell you, until I talk to you again, peace out.